Hi friends, this is Michael Golzmane, and this video is on the topic of entities, attachments, heavy energies, how to identify them, what my perspective is on them, and how to go about clearing them. This is something that seems very glamorized in our Hollywood scenarios. We kind of have this viewpoint of demonic possession and like having to go to this exorcist and there's screaming and shouting and all this kind of stuff. And to be quite honest with you, those have been reported, those kinds of cases have been reported throughout the world over time. But in general, the types of energies we're talking about here that can stick into people's energy fields are not really that dramatic. There are things in my experience that I have found that most everyone has actually going on. So if you suspect you have some degree of discordant energy or entity around you, it's nothing to be scared of by any means. But it is very, very common. Through psychic spiritual research, it can be determined which categories and types of these things you have going on and how to go about best clearing them. Maybe some psychic intuitive person told you you had them going on, or you just have a certain sense that is drawing you to know more information to find out more about them. So in my opinion, in my perspective, and sort of asking Spirit for some confirmation about this guidance, what is the definition? What does this stuff mean? Well, we're talking about non-physical energy here. We're talking about not physical beings. We're talking about the feeling or sense of a presence that is sort of sticking in or attaching into your energy field. This can be many different types of presences simultaneously as well. There can be many different of these energies happening, even thousands of them happening at once for people. And they're generally not evil. They're not... they're negative in the sense that they're not of the highest light and intention for you. If you had a choice around them, you wouldn't want to have them hanging around you, but they're not generally, again, the glamorized views that we see in Hollywood movies. Not that really at all. These could be looked at as beings, in whatever sense you think of a being not having a physical body. This could be looked at that way. It could also be looked at as kind of a coagulation of negative thought energy. You know, we've all heard this phrase before. Something saying, well, that thing has a life of its own now. You know? So if enough people, or even us, are vibrating to a certain type of discordant energy, whether it's fear, or whether it's anxiety, or whether it's just stress, we can actually create and manifest individually and in the collective these beings who might be termed entities. There's many different names for them. And these beings can sort of be going around roving fear or roving anxiety, looking for people that resonate with it and that are open to accepting this entity. It's kind of like this energy that comes from my background as a Christian background is remembering the New Testament, where it says that Satan goes around like a roving lion, you know, looking for whom he may devour. And this idea of roving around, moving into energy attachment, and looking for suitable beings and people to receive this being, this is kind of the way some of this energy works. Again, nothing to be scared of here. The energy is generally not malevolent. It may have a sense of limiting our ability to mentally and emotionally feel really good and feel really connected, feel really clear. This energy can often limit our ability to be able to think really clearly and to be able, despite our best intentions, to be able to really feeling like downloading from the universe the purpose for our soul and being, and being able to manifest that clearly. We might feel like, oh, I'm really into procrastination, or I really can't do that now, or it's just not the right time. When we get into excuses, this can often be the voice of these non-physical energies and entities that are, again, not malevolent, but they may have an agenda with us around not wanting us to bring more light, not wanting us to do our spiritual work, our light work, our healing work, our clearing work, especially if the work that you're trying to do is more aligned with your soul path rather than just your average mundane type of job. If that's true, if it's more activated onto your path, you may encounter more of these types of entities that are, you know, they're trying to get you down because they're part of the mass negative collective consciousness that is sort of pulling the vibration down. It's not really necessarily personal to you, though if you have fears and anxieties already, you may tend to attract these beings to you. I'm reminded of the stories of Jesus in the New Testament, where he and his disciples would often talk about casting out an unfamiliar spirit from someone who had a disease or it's very clear that some of them had physical conditions, some of them had mental and emotional conditions or spiritual illnesses. And that by the casting out of these, they were called demons in the New Testament, by casting out of these beings, the person was able to find relief. Now, whether those stories are literally true or not, I think it speaks to something very, very relevant for us today. When we are able to identify and clear these types of non-physical attachments, entities, you can sometimes call them possessions, though again, that word can be used much more broadly than is seen in Hollywood films. When that happens, well, everything can really change. I have found personally the mind and the emotions can become much, much clearer. These are energies that I consistently have to work on clearing in my own life, partly because of my own spiritual path and partly because I work a lot with other people and work with their energy fields. And so being aware of, are these energies activating around me at all, and what can I do about them to clear them, is very, very important. I've become very sensitized to realizing if I feel mentally out of sorts, if I feel really emotionally out of sorts, it's very likely that I've picked up what we call in my clearing work blocks and interference. This is a larger category of, you could say, spiritual entities, dark energies, attachments. They're given various different names, including things like discarnates that can get attached into the energy field. And we look at this entire category of clearing each time we approach clearing, both me for myself and in my work with my clients. Because when these things are hanging around, it also becomes much more difficult to actually access a person's individual soul and to clear a person's own soul programs and issues. So beyond the level of these energies attaching into the energy field, there's the stuff that's just within us. There's our own stuff as a result of how we've thought and felt out of alignment with spirit for eons of our soul's history. That's the really important, relevant stuff ultimately to start clearing, but we can't really get to that until we actually clear these types of blocks and heavy energies and entities first. Now, many people will attempt to do this through, for instance, smudging. And I love smudging. I love burning sage and various other types of herbs and letting that smoke just kind of pour around you. I find this to be a slightly effective technology for clearing entities and discordant energies. It does a little bit, but it doesn't really help with everything. Then there are people who talk about, well, I can just ask for them to be left. I can ask for them to be cleared. And that is also a somewhat effective strategy. If you call in the angels, or if you call in whatever beings you work with, you can just use the word God or spirit or angels or whatever. You can ask that energy or visualize energy. If you want a more non-personalized energy, visualize white light around you. This can have a protecting effect. It can also have a clearing effect. But I have found that these technologies do not really get to everything. That's what we really need to do. We can have a little bit of a lighter burden as a result, lighten our load by doing some of this clearing work, but it often will not get to everything, because everything, just by asking for something to be clear doesn't necessarily mean that it will be done. And why is that? That's a very interesting question. Why, if we looked at a list of, say, 25 different categories of these discordant energies that could attach into our field, and we just said, Spirit, clear this off. Spirit, clear this off of me right now. I want it to be gone. Why may or may not that work 100% of the time? This is a very difficult question for me for many years, because I used those types of technologies a lot. I'm like, well, I'm asking for this big list of things to be cleared, so they must be cleared, right? So I thought. I'm like, well, the energy goes where your intention goes. The energy flows where your intention goes. And so just by asking for it, it has to be cleared for you. And this is a generally true principle. However, and this is the deeper point of this, we may have addictions, contracts, programs, vows within our own soul to attract this discordant energy to us. And even when we use sage, or we use technologies that might work to some degree for many people to help to alleviate this entity stress. They may not all leave because we may be actually attached to them. We may say with our minds, I want them to go, but we may be holding back with our programs, our inner programs and contracts, saying, no, I need this here, or I'm addicted to this state of consciousness, or I resonate so strongly with this fear energy that this entity is providing that I have to continue to manifest its connection to me. These are the finer and more subtle points of clearing. We have to begin to deal with the vows, the contracts, the inner reasons within our own soul why our conscious mind may say, I want this gone, but the rest of us may still continue to hold on. Or even if something gets initially cleared for us, we may attract other things that are in same energetic vibration as the things we've already cleared. So we need to become aware of the deeper clearing process. This is often very difficult to do, at least initially, for ourselves. It's good to have a deft hand, an experienced hand, be able to go in, be able to check into all the different gradations of this in the energy field for you, and to see how can this be cleared totally. Once it's cleared, you feel really, really different. And you can clear some of your inner soul programming along, why was I attracting this in the first place? That helps you to not attract as much of it into the future. Here's another point. This point of entities and heavy energies. I have combined a little bit of intuitive asking of spirit along with some of my knowledge around spiritualities of the East. And I have realized that some of the energies and entities hanging around us are our ancestors. Some of the time. I often ask this question, Spirit, what percentage of the entities and beings hanging around someone right now are their ancestors? I often get very high, 60 to 70 to 80%. This fits into the idea of ancestral karma, and this is also talked about in Hinduism quite a bit, about the idea that once our ancestors are off of their bodies and off of the earth plane, they're often from the other side of the veil, they're often in our energy fields, trying to get us to do what they felt like they couldn't do, or to do their unfinished business. This is one of the reasons why wars are perpetuated throughout the world, because the ancestors who are killed in battle on the other side are trying to get their incarnated loved ones to follow their instructions to kill the other side, or to harm them in some way. And so if you look back at your ancestors, look back to your parents, your grandparents, look back at the things that have been passed down, the struggles that have happened. It could be dis-ease, it could be mental emotional imbalances, it could be no one in my family has ever really made any money. It could be everyone has felt like totally attached to doing some 9-to-5 job that doesn't serve their higher purpose, or they're not serving the higher purpose of their souls, and they end up dying and not really ever having accomplished their purpose. If that sounds like you, or if that sounds like something to do with your family lineage, then this is an issue to really deal with. Clearing away, this is one term we use the term extra souls. Sometimes the extra souls of our ancestors that can be sticking on to the energy field. Again, they're not usually harmful or malevolent, but they can be very limiting to your worldview, limiting to your consciousness, limiting to your potentiality. So these things are not difficult to clear, but they're not necessarily easy to clear if you're not trained to do so. So if you have been told, or you have the perception that you have some of these energies going on with you, get in contact with me. I'd be happy to do a check-in to your energy field to confirm or deny for you whether you actually have these things going on, and make suggestions for you about what to do about them. They can be, as some of the strategies we talked about today, they can be dealt with, at least in part, by some of the common strategies available. However, if we are very attached or addicted to the energies that we're actually clearing, and we actually have subconscious and soul level programs to pick them up and to attract them to us, it will be very difficult for us to stay clear of these for any length of time, even if we clear them, even if you were, for instance, able to clear them once, get rid of them off your energy field. If the underlying soul programs and energies attracting them to you haven't been cleared, you may find yourself an hour later or the next day with a whole new group of beings, a whole new group of energies there. And this is the deeper aspect of why some spiritual clearing technologies do not seem to work for everyone, why people try to do them for themselves, at least initially, why it seems to be very challenging for this to happen. And I want to give you hope, though, and let you know that it is possible to be free of these. And the amount of emotional and mental and spiritual balance that you can feel as you release this discordant energy is absolutely astounding, especially when someone does it for themselves and for their family members. It's absolutely amazing what can be found in that clearing process. So I hope you'll click below this video to my website, clearingconnect.com. Drop me a note. Ask me to give you to check in for you. I'd be happy to do that. And I appreciate you taking in the information I've shared with you today, seeing how it is compatible with your own understanding about this issue. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. Peace and blessings, friends.